The South African Banking Risk Information Center has confirmed that credit bureau Experian suffered a major data attack which exposed the personal information of as many as 24 million South Africans. Now, nearly 800,000 business entities have also fallen prey to a suspected fraudster, we're told. According to the Risk Center, Experian confirmed the breach, which has been reported to law enforcement. Let's now bring in the CEO of the SA Banking Risk Information Center, and that's Nischal Mewalall, who will help us understand what some of the ramifications for this are. Nischal, thanks very much for your time and welcome to the AM Report. How embarrassed do you rate Experian should be about this?
No, thank you, and good morning to all of the listeners. I'm not sure I'm in a good position to comment on whether they should be embarrassed. Certainly, they've taken a lot of steps in collaboration with the bank and different forensic agencies in order to get the matter going and investigate where possible in order to mitigate the risks associated to the event.
Right, okay, but are we anywhere closer to understanding how this happened to begin with? I mean, 24 million South Africans is certainly not a small number, and Experian is not, necessarily your smallest company either.
Yes, well, I think information has found its way into the public domain. Much of it is contained in some court records, which Experian has explained in that they took on a client who turned out to use fraudulent information in order to come onto their books. And this client presented this original data set, which consists of in excess of 24 million records, as well as in excess of 750,000 details about entities in South Africa. They presented this information to Experian. Experian responded to it, and it was a fraudulent transaction.
Typically, South Africans don't necessarily take data breaches seriously. And I say typically because obviously the response might be different depending on who you speak to. Why should this matter to ordinary South Africans that parts of their details are, supposedly in the hands of people who they haven't necessarily given permission to be able to access those data?
I think that I have to pay careful attention to this, particularly because what could happen when your information lands in an unauthorized person's hands. And in this case, this information exposes South Africans, well, not this information, but many types of information which speak to your own personal information, compromise the individual in terms of allowing them to become susceptible to crime. So this kind of information could be used in order to do authentication and get access into banking information. It allows people to use this identification information, maybe create fraudulent identification documents, passports. You end up becoming involved in credit transactions you were not partisan to. Purchases are made in your name. So certainly there are a lot of crimes that South Africans can be exposed to out of their data being in unauthorized persons' hands.
Right. I imagine there has to be a law compelling these companies to tell customers if they've been affected. Is there a way for South Africans to know whether they're part of this 24 million?
Yes. Certainly there are laws. South Africa has a very, very robust system when it comes to data management. We have national laws that actually regulate how data must be managed and collected. Certainly there are rules and obligations around the laws of people or associated to people that need to manage this data. So they have legal obligations as well. And one of the first steps has been that banks have taken it upon themselves to communicate with customers. And certainly if these customers feel that they've been compromised, they need to engage again with their bank. And certainly these individuals have recourse to Experian as well, who has come out saying that they are willing to assist these individuals. So certainly there are two channels available.
And what type of recourse could that be, by the way? Can we take Experian to court if you've been affected by this?
So certainly, I think Experian has put in place some steps that they could offer a customer in terms of taking steps to further protect the identity of the customer through the products and services it offers. Another remedy could be approaching the South African Fraud Prevention Society, and through that process, you are able to get a protective registration so that if somebody uses your identity in order to open up some form of account, it would certainly ping on this data set and it would generate an alert.
That's interesting. And it brings me to my next question. I mean, could South Africans themselves have done anything differently to prevent something like this happening? I mean, now we speak about remedies, but obviously the horse has already bolted, so to speak. What kind of preventative measures could have been put in place specifically by South Africans?
Well, it's difficult for South Africans to prevent something like this. What they can do is to reduce the risk associated to them falling victim. And there are certainly some things you can do, like paying careful attention to what's going on in your bank statements. Watch out for unsolicited communication. Prevent yourself from falling victim to phishing scams. Prevent yourself from, engaging in unsolicited emails, SMSs. Don't click, downloads onto your machine that are unauthorized. Do not give your private information out. Protect your personal identification number when it comes to your bank cards. And also take a moment to go and learn a little bit about how these crimes are manifesting in society, especially now when everybody is working online and, there's a lot of scams out there in relation to COVID. So we just need to be a lot more vigilant.
Yeah, and shame, not your fault, Nischal, but none of this is new. I almost feel like I've had this conversation before with some other tech expert. It does, however, raise the question about whether or not we get a sense that we're moving any closer to ensuring that our information is secured online or on any other data platform. I mean, you work in that field quite often. Give us an idea of what your sense is about how efficient we actually are becoming, if we are, in protecting people's personal information.
Look, protecting people's information is very complex business. It starts off by having the correct policies and processes, an excellent risk management plan. You need to have the capacity to be able to monitor, and you need the capacity to be able to actually execute the security protocols and the technology to execute the security protocols. The thing is, this is a moving target. For as long as we keep on putting controls in place and strengthening our ability to protect the data, so too are criminals innovating in methods to beat the system. So this is always going to be a bit of a cat and mouse game. It's never going to be a perfect science, but certainly we continue to evolve as new ideas manifest. So too, we are changing the way we're going about doing things.
Thanks very much for getting us into the picture as best as you can. One can only imagine some of the constraints that you also have to face with this moving target, as you put it. Nischal Mewalall is the CEO of the South African Banking Risk Information Center. Thanks very much indeed for your time.